Abraham Lincoln must be turning in his grave to hear the senators from the grand old party, the party of abolition and emancipation and Reconstruction, echoing the states' rights rhetoric of Dixiecrat segregationists to oppose federal voting rights legislation, to oppose even the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act of 1965. In 2021, just one Republican senator had the courage and principle to vote to restore the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the senator from Alaska, Senator Murkowski. Just one. For decades, the reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act was bipartisan. Today, only one Republican senator will stand up for this landmark achievement of the civil rights movement. Not Senator Cornyn of Texas, who previously said the Voting Rights Act is simply the most important and most effective civil rights legislation ever passed, bar none. No longer his position. Not my friend, the senator from Maine, Senator Collins, who previously said this bill will ensure that the voting rights afforded to all Americans are protected. Not Senator Burr of North Carolina, who previously said voting rights for all American citizens regardless of race are granted by the 15th Amendment and enforced by the Voting Rights Act. And not the minority leader, who previously said this is a good piece of legislation which has served an important purpose over many years, and this landmark piece of legislation will continue to make a difference not only in the South, but for all Americans and for all of us, whether we are African Americans or not. Not the minority leader. The same minority leader who said this bill eliminated the barriers to voting so that all Americans could participate in the basic opportunity each of us have. Who celebrated, quote, "We have renewed the Voting Rights Act periodically since that time, overwhelmingly and on a bipartisan basis year after year, because members of Congress realize that this is a piece of legislation that has worked." No more. Not in 2022. Only one Republican senator stood up to support the Voting Rights Act of 1965. When Congressman John Lewis and Hosea Williams and Amelia Boynton and hundreds of others marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday, when John Lewis had his skull fractured on that bridge for daring to demand the right to vote for black Americans in the American South, it was the example of their courage and their sacrifice that paved the way for passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. As my colleague, my brother, Senator Reverend Warnock, has often observed, when Congressman Lewis passed, there were many in this chamber on both sides who rightly celebrated his towering achievements and his legacy. But I speak for the state of Georgia when I say do not invoke Congressman Lewis' name to signal your virtue while you work to erode his legacy and defy his will.